Right now, as you are listening to this, there are millions of people sitting in office cubicles or, staring into webcams from their home offices who look completely fine.
Yeah, totally fine on the outside.
Right. They are answering emails, they're hitting deadlines, nodding in meetings, but beneath the surface, their biology is in a state of chronic blaring alarm.
It's an invisible alarm.
Exactly. And that invisible silent alarm is currently costing the global economy about $1 trillion every single year.
It really is the ultimate blind spot in modern business. I mean, we have metrics and dashboards for supply chains, server uptime, quarterly revenue.
Everything.
Right, everything. But when it comes to the actual biological engine driving all of that, the human brain, we are essentially flying blind. We rely entirely on people telling us they're okay, right up until the moment they just collapse.
Okay, let's unpack this, because usually when we talk about a medical issue, we expect some level of precision. Like if you break your arm, you go to a hospital, they take an x-ray, right?
Right, you get an image.
Yeah, you see a jagged white line on the film, and the doctor points to it and says, there is the problem. It's visible. But you step into the world of workplace stress, burnout, cognitive overload, and suddenly that x-ray machine just doesn't exist.
It's completely subjective.
The diagnostic landscape is so murky, and we literally wait until people are utterly broken before we even try to look.
Which is exactly why the material we are analyzing today for this deep dive is so disruptive. We are looking at sources from Rotgans research, specifically detailing their NPRO-8 Core system.
And it's a massive shift.
It is a massive paradigm shift.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is that it's the collision of neuroscience and corporate economics. For decades, mental well-being at work was treated as, well, a sock science,
Just surveys and guesswork.
Exactly, a realm of guesswork, self-reporting, and generic wellness initiatives. But our mission today is to explore this transition from those subjective, how are you feeling today, surveys, to a 10-minute, objective, neurophysiological brain measurement.
It's just wild to think about.
We are finally getting the tools to measure the unseen strain on the nervous system.
The idea that mental fitness could be screened as routinely as, say, blood pressure completely upends how HR departments operate. But before we get into the actual brain scanning tech and how it works, we have to look at the financial reality of why this is an absolute crisis.
We really do. Because we aren't just talking about feeling a little sleepy on a Friday.
Right. To frame the scale of the problem, we have to start with how the World Health Organization defines burnout.
Yeah, they classify it specifically as chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed.
Has not been managed.
Right. It is an unmanaged condition, an ongoing biological state. It's not just a fleeting mood.
And the cost of ignoring that condition is just staggering. I mean, the numbers in our sources, frankly, made me do a double take.
They are massive.
Globally, workplace stress is linked to $1 trillion in annual lost productivity and 12 billion lost workdays every single year.
It's hard to even conceptualize that.
And in the U.S. alone, workplace stress accounts for $190 billion in annual medical costs.
But we have to be extremely clear about what those numbers actually represent, though. The data is very specific on this, and it's a critical point.
What do you mean?
Well, when we talk about that $1 trillion global cost, or the specific 15.7 billion Singapore dollar annual cost we see in the data regarding stress-related illnesses.
Well, right. The Singapore data is huge.
Yes. Those astronomical figures are linked specifically to severe downstream outcomes. That money is paying for clinical depression and anxiety.
Oh, I see.
Right. Unmanaged workplace stress and burnout are the early pathways leading directly to those devastating, expensive medical endpoints.
So the stress is the pathway, but the depression and anxiety are the destination. And that destination is what's bankrupting companies.
Exactly.
Let's zoom in on Singapore for a second, because the research provides incredibly detailed data on this market. 1 in 3 employees in Singapore reports work-related stress or burnout.
1 in 3.
And when employees are under that kind of strain, they miss an extra 17.7 days of work annually.
Wow.
Yeah, that absenteeism alone costs a company about $4,980 per worker.
But absenteeism, the days people physically just don't show up, is really just the visible part of the iceberg.
Right, it's just the tick.
The far more dangerous financial drain is presenteeism.
Right, presenteeism, meaning you are sitting at your desk, but your brain is essentially offline.
You're physically there, but mentally gone.
You're rereading the same email 5 times. You can't process complex information. You're just like staring at a spreadsheet.
Yeah, you're working while impaired by chronic stress. The neurocognitive load is just maxed out. In the Singapore data, 40% of employees report being less productive because of this state.
40%, that's almost half the workforce.
And that presenteeism equates to $28,720 in annual economic losses per worker. Just think about a company with, say, 1,000 employees. You are looking at tens of millions of dollars leaking out of the revenue stream, happening quietly in cubicles every single day.
I have to play devil's advocate here, though.
Sure, go ahead.
If I'm an executive, I might be thinking, isn't stress just a normal part of having a job? I mean, you have deadlines, you have difficult clients, quarterly goals. That's why we pay you.
That is the traditional mindset, yes.
Why should a company care if an employee is stressed as long as the work eventually gets done? I mean, think of it like a slow leak in a car's tire.
Okay, a slow leak.
You can still drive to the grocery store, the car's still moving. Why spend the money to put it in the shop?
Well, you can drive on a slow leak for a while.
Yeah.
But eventually you hit 70 miles an hour on the highway, the tire completely blows out, and instead of a $10 patch...
You're in a massive accident.
Exactly. You have a totaled car, hospital bills, and a massive insurance premium hike. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the reality that executives have to understand is that stress is already on their balance sheet.
It's just hidden.
Exactly. Ignoring those early pathways of burnout, that slow leak, virtually guarantees the company will eventually pay for the catastrophic downstream costs.
Right. The depression and anxiety we talked about.
The absenteeism, the medical costs, the high turnover of losing top talent. You either pay a little to monitor the tire or you pay a fortune for the crash.
So if the costs are this massive and the inevitable crash is that expensive, why aren't companies already fixing it? I mean, that leads us to the failure of the current corporate wellness landscape.
It really isn't for a lack of trying, though. That is the tragic irony in the data. Like, in Singapore, for instance, 33.5% of employers offered mental well-being programs in 2024.
But the updated 2026 workplace strategy benchmarks reveal a massive, glaring disconnect.
Yes, they do.
In early 2026, 45% of Singaporean employees had access to counseling, which, sounds fantastic on an HR brochure.
Looks great on paper.
But simultaneously, a staggering 61% of them still report burnout, which is actually above the Asia-Pacific regional average.
Think about that.
They have access to the help, but the burnout is actually getting worse.
This is the core issue Rotgans research isolates. Access to support does not equal accurately identifying the problem in the first place.
Right.
Providing an employee assistance program or giving everyone a premium subscription to a meditation app relies almost entirely on subjective surveys to gauge if the workforce is actually struggling.
The classic annual, how are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 5 survey.
Yeah, exactly. And subjective surveys fail because human beings are incredibly skilled at masking their stress.
Especially at work.
Right. Often, high performers mask it from themselves. They normalize their own exhaustion. Or, more commonly, they fear retaliation or appearing weak.
So they just check, I'm fine, on the HR survey.
Yes. Furthermore, providing generic stress management training to an entire company is highly ineffective. You can only truly improve what you can precisely measure.
So, what does this all mean? If we look at this current wellness approach, it's like a hospital waiting room full of people. Someone has a broken arm, someone has a severe fever, someone is having a migraine.
Okay.
And a doctor walks out and just gives every single person a leg cast.
Right, exactly.
It's a generic solution applied to a highly individualized problem.
Imagine handing out those leg casts without even taking an X-ray or a temperature reading first. That is what a generic wellness app does.
Giving generic meditation advice to someone whose nervous system is chronically hijacked by functional burnout is
completely ineffective. It's a fundamental flaw in self-reporting. In physical medicine, we routinely check blood pressure.
Yeah, we run blood panels.
Right. We look at cholesterol long before a physical symptom becomes a full-blown heart attack. The philosophy behind this research asks, why, in the realm of mental fitness, do we wait for the psychological equivalent of a heart attack?
Like severe anxiety.
Or clinical depression? Why wait for that to start intervening?
Since subjective surveys are failing us and people are, let's be honest, lying on their self-assessments, we need a thermometer for the brain. We need a way to measure the invisible.
And this is where Rotgans Research's NPRO-8 Core system comes in.
Right.
This is the transition from the subjective, how do you feel, to the objective, what is your biology actually doing? NPRO-8 is an objective neurophysiological stress measurement tool.
Walk me through the mechanics of this, because when you say neurophysiological measurement, it sounds like I need to be in an MRI machine for 3 hours.
No, not at all.
If I'm an employee taking this assessment, what is actually happening?
It utilizes a highly sensitive wearable device, and the entire assessment takes just 10 minutes.
Wow, just 10 minutes.
Just 10 minutes. And it isn't a basic fitness tracker just counting your steps. During those 10 minutes, the individual is usually exposed to a baseline cognitive task, and this system is capturing a physiological snapshot of how the autonomic nervous system is firing.
So it's tracking the involuntary stuff.
Yes, it is measuring the body's involuntary responses, things tied to heart rate variability, cognitive load, autonomic arousal, across 3 specific pillars of mental fitness.
So it's looking at the biological data my body just can't hide. What is the first pillar the system is looking for?
The first is stress load. This measures the brain's immediate physiological reaction to a stressor.
Okay.
It is not asking if you feel overwhelmed. It is objectively calculating how hard your biological engine is working to maintain baseline functioning under pressure.
Because some people hide it better.
Exactly. Some people can handle a heavy cognitive load with minimal physiological spike, while others immediately flood their system with stress hormones.
What happens when the pressure stops, though? Because stress isn't just about the peak moment of panic. It's about what happens after you close your laptop.
And that leads directly to the second pillar.
Recovery capacity.
Recovery capacity. This is incredibly fascinating because it is often the missing link in diagnosing burnout. Recovery capacity measures the brain's physiological ability to bounce back, to downregulate the nervous system after a stressor is removed.
So calming down.
Right. Someone might have a high stress load, but if their recovery capacity is robust, if their vagal tone allows them to quickly return to a state of calm, they can handle the high-stress environment.
So burnout happens when...
Burnout happens when that recovery capacity gets depleted. The parasympathetic nervous system literally forgets how to hit the brakes, and the alarm bells just stay on indefinitely.
Oh, wow. So you're stuck in fight or flight while you're trying to eat dinner with your family.
Exactly.
And then there is the third pillar, which ties it all back to the workplace.
Functional impact. This measures how the physiological strain, the combination of high stress and low recovery, is actively affecting your cognitive performance right now.
How it messes with your work.
Yeah. It connects the biological data directly to your ability to execute tasks, make decisions, and process information.
Here's where it gets really interesting, and I know if I am listening to this, I'm putting myself in the shoes of an employee and feeling a little defensive.
That's a natural reaction.
Right. My boss wants to scan my brain's autonomic nervous system to see if I'm stressed. That sounds terrifying. It feels dystopian, like Big Brother is monitoring my biology to see if I'm working hard enough.
It is the most justified initial reaction anyone could have.
Yeah.
And the researchers address this head on. This raises an important question, and we have to be very clear about the optics and the ethics of how this is applied.
Okay.
The crucial caveat of NPRO-8 is that it is a screening tool, not a diagnostic tool for mental illness.
So it's not a diagnosis.
No, it is not a lie detector.
Yay.
It is not reading your thoughts or judging your loyalty to the company.
It's an early warning system.
Yes, the entire purpose is to protect the employee from those devastating pathways to anxiety and depression we discussed earlier.
The $1 trillion problem.
Exactly. Think about the current paradigm you operate in.
Yeah.
Right now, the burden is entirely on you to prove you are burnt out.
Yeah, you have to go to HR, articulate an invisible, highly subjective pain, and often face skepticism or, subtle judgment.
NPRO-8 shifts that burden. It allows your biology to speak for itself, objectively. It provides evidence-based data so the employee and the employer can make adjustments before the situation escalates to a medical crisis.
So instead of having to beg for a lighter workload because you vaguely feel overwhelmed, you have objective biological data saying, look, my recovery capacity is severely depleted. My nervous system is physiologically failing to downregulate.
It legitimizes an invisible struggle. It removes the stigma because, frankly, you can't argue with the autonomic nervous system.
That's so true. But the sources make a really big point that a single 10-minute measurement is just a single data point. And a single point of data doesn't tell a story.
No, it doesn't.
The real value is in how this measurement is applied over time. This is where the 8-week blueprint comes in, moving from a static baseline to a dynamic trajectory.
Right, because if you take your blood pressure right after sprinting up a flight of stairs, it's going to be sky high.
Yeah, obviously.
But that doesn't mean you have chronic, life-threatening hypertension. Context and time are everything in biology.
So how does it work in practice?
The NPRO-8 process involves repeated 10-minute measurements, typically conducted once a week over an 8-week period.
How does that 8-week timeline break down? What are we looking for in the first few weeks?
Weeks 1 through 3 are the familiarization phase. This is purely about establishing the individual's personal biological baseline.
Because everyone is different.
Exactly. Everyone's neurophysiology is unique. What looks like an elevated stress load for one person might be a normal, healthy operating procedure for another.
Okay, that makes sense.
So we gather data for 3 weeks to understand what your normal looks like, devoid of any single-day anomalies.
And once we know my normal, we move to weeks 4 through 8, the intervention phase.
Right. If the baseline data shows that an employee's nervous system is under severe strain, this is where neuro-targeted training is introduced.
Neuro-targeted training.
And return to our hospital analogy, this is where we finally stop handing out generic leg casts.
Nice.
If the data shows your recovery capacity is failing, the training uses biofeedback and specific physiological protocols to retrain your nervous system to downregulate. It targets the exact biological pillar that is struggling.
What I love about this is how the data output is designed. It's highly sophisticated predictive data modeling, but the user interface isn't a complex medical chart.
No, it's very accessible. It categorizes things into green, amber, and red.
Good. Monitor and needs attention. And it visualizes the trajectory of your mental fitness over those 8 weeks. It calculates the slope of change per session.
The slope of change is really the most powerful piece of data in the entire system because it mathematically determines a trajectory.
It shows where you're heading.
It tells you definitively if a person's mental fitness is improving, staying stable, or deteriorating over time. It isn't just taking a snapshot of where they are. It's predicting where they are going to be a month from now.
It's the difference between a printed map and a live GPS.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, doing a one-off subjective wellness survey in December is like looking at a static map. It tells you where you're standing in that exact second, but it tells you absolutely nothing about the road ahead.
Right.
But this 8-week trajectory, tracking the slope of change, it's a live GPS. It actively sees the traffic jam of burnout forming 3 miles ahead, and it allows you to reroute the employee before they ever hit the wall.
And beyond the individual benefit, think about the accountability this brings to corporate wellness spending.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
By tracking the slope of change objectively, companies know exactly if an intervention is actually working.
Because they have the data.
Yes. If an employee starts a neuro-targeted training in week 4, the biological data in weeks 5, 6, 7, and 8 will objectively prove if that training is altering their trajectory.
It completely eliminates the guesswork.
You aren't just spending $1 million on wellness programs and hoping they work.
Yeah.
You have the biological proof of their efficacy.
It forces the wellness industry to actually prove its worth. So if we step back and look at the whole picture, we started by looking at the devastating financial reality of unmanaged stress.
Right.
The trillion-dollar global drain, the massive presenteeism costs, and the fact that we are currently using subjective surveys to put Band-Aids on invisible wounds.
And we clarified that the true cost of failing to identify those early pathways of unmanaged stress is that it pushes employees directly into those catastrophic medical endpoints.
The clinical depression and anxiety.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what the $1 trillion is paying for.
But the future looks fundamentally different. We explored how a 10-minute objective brain measurement looking at stress load, recovery capacity, and functional impact can give us the X-ray we've been missing.
We finally have the tools.
We saw how an 8-week trajectory acts as that live GPS intercepting burnout before the nervous system completely fails.
It is a profound shift from reactive symptom management to proactive biological protection.
I want you to think about your own professional life for a second. Think about your own internal check engine light. When you are feeling pushed to the brink, are you relying purely on a subjective, blurry feeling to know when you've had too much?
Most people are.
Are you waiting until the engine is literally smoking on the side of the highway to pull over? Or do you wish you had an objective dashboard telling you, scientifically, that your recovery capacity is failing and it's time to intervene before the damage is permanent?
If we look at the trajectory of this technology, it raises a major question about the future of work.
What's that?
If the tools now exist to measure workplace mental strain as objectively and accurately as we measure physical workplace hazards like chemical exposure or unsafe noise levels on a factory floor,
Yeah.
how long will it be until a company not offering this kind of objective neurological screening is legally and morally considered to be committing workplace negligence?
Oh, wow. That changes the entire conversation.
Hmm.
Moving mental fitness from a nice-to-have HR perk to a fundamental, measurable safety
It's
requirement.
inevitable.
For the longest time, the pain of workplace burnout was completely invisible. But it looks like we finally have the tools to bring it into the light. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.